Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is Mount Moriah Radio, Mount Moriah Television, and I just want to welcome you to another edition of Inspiring Time with Juliet. Please do get that cup of tea, coffee, a glass of water. Come and sit down, and let us just talk about menopause. If you have a woman that is within the age of menopause, mothers, father, even fathers as well, and daughters and sisters and relatives that you think will benefit from this discussion today, please invite them and share this platform with them. Today, we're going to be talking about menopause. Are we winning with menopause? And I've got a special guest with me today. This is a wonderful lady, a lady that has been doing a lot of things, kind of programs, events on menopause itself. She's an award-winning speaker. She's a menopause wellness advocate for Black women. She's an author, and she's also the founder of the Relentless Boss. We're going to talk about Relentless Boss. No more about it today. She's a dynamic woman, and she's a powerful speaker, a wellness advocate, specializing in menopause care for Black women. I am so glad and so privileged to welcome today a lady we have come to know as Emma Lady. Emma, you are welcome to Mount Moriah Radio and Television and here on Inspiring Time with Juliet.
Thank
Please,
you
please
so
say
much.
hello to our viewers.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much, Dr. Juliet.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so this is your favorite topic and also my favorite topic as well. So we're going to have fun talking about this today. Menopause. So tell me, before we even go into that discussion, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell us a bit more about yourself apart from what I have already said.
Yeah, so most people know me as the relentless boss, a strong, resilient Black woman who overcame an autoimmune disease called sarcoidosis. The prognosis was medication for life or die. But God had other plans and he completely healed me. Jesus Christ healed me of this autoimmune disease and I was able to overcome it. I've been meds free for 15 years and no symptoms. So symptom free, medication free for 15 years. And through my overcoming of the autoimmune disease, I went on then to build a successful business, The Relentless Boss, and serve 10,000 women plus in my community to help them to reclaim their health. All for the book called Journey to Wellness, which shares my testimony on how God healed me and how I actually had to be intentional thereafter with my health in terms of nutrition, exercise, and also working on my mindset to change my health. And so that's it in a nutshell, really. But the menopause we're going to talk about today, that is a different story, and how I am able to actually thrive through that transition, and how all that came about.
I am so pleased to hear this because this is a personal experience, isn't it, Emma? It's not something that is, this is a lived experience,
Yes.
something that is quite personal to you. I mean, menopause the idea, the phrase itself, the transition itself has come a long way. And, it used to be a medical problem, a medical issue. What do women understand menopause to mean at this time?
So, I mean, I've spoken to countless women about menopause, and a lot of women actually don't know what menopause actually is, or the symptoms that can come with menopause. And of course, as you said, it was seen as a medical issue. However, menopause is not a medical issue because menopause is a natural transition that every woman, if you're long enough, if you're blessed to live long enough, you will experience. So it's a natural transition that every woman at a certain age will experience. But what comes with menopause oftentimes is a myriad of symptoms that can well, for myself personally, it completely blindsided me. So, as I mentioned, most people knew me as the relentless boss, this strong, resilient Black woman who built this business, overcame an autoimmune disease. But what most people didn't know is that almost 5 years ago, I witnessed my neighbor die by suicide.
Oh.
And just a few short months later, I was suicidal myself. So that happened on Christmas Day 2020. And then in 2021, just a few short months later, I was suicidal myself. I became reclusive. I couldn't get out of bed. I almost got sectioned because I had really severe psychological symptoms and I had no idea that it could be perimenopause because I'd never had any conversation with anyone. When I
Mm.
turned to my community, I was met with silence because
Mm.
oftentimes in the African and Caribbean communities and other ethnicities, we don't actually
Mm.
talk about menopause. I've been literally shut down whenever I've tried to speak to certain members of family in regards to menopause. I've been completely shut down because there is a stigma of silence around menopause because it's associated with aging. And in a lot of cases, women do not want to be associated with menopause. When I talk about women, I'm talking about African, Caribbean cultures and communities don't want to be associated with menopause because of the stigma. And so the only place I had to turn to in the end, because doctors also dismissed me when I shared what I was
Mm.
experiencing. I experienced 30 plus perimenopause symptoms. There's over 100 symptoms related to menopause. So most women who go through menopause, a lot of the symptoms that they experience, they actually do not link those symptoms to menopause. Oftentimes, we are dismissed by the medical profession because they also, in most cases, do not understand what menopause is or how menopause affects women. They certainly do not understand the nuances and the differences to how menopause affects Black women. It can start as early
Mm.
as age 35. So, perimenopause, I'm talking about here, can start as early as age 35 and it can last for up to 14 years. So, on average, for white women, perimenopause can last between 4 to 8 years. For Black women, it can last for up to 14 years, according to some studies that have been done. And so, many women are going through these symptoms in silence. Women are losing their relationships, they're quitting their
Mm.
jobs because they feel that they just can't cope. And oftentimes women actually think that they are losing their minds, that they're actually going crazy, but they're really not going crazy because there is a major shift going on inside of the body and also inside of the brain during menopause.
Yeah, that's brilliant because you've actually kind of touched base on how do you say perimenopause,
Yes.
premenopause, and we're going to talk about that as well. You touched base on symptoms as well, the symptom reporting, what women are reporting. Has there been a shift? Because when I did my postgraduate, studies, I did menopause as part of my postgraduate studies, and there were quite a lot of symptoms being reported during the time. But obviously, there has been this is more than 10 years ago, so there's gonna be there must be a lot of changes, perhaps due to research and symptom reporting as well. People be more aware. What are some of those changes in symptom reporting? That you're able to tell us because
So
you've got extensive
your
research
the
on this.
research that you did was 10 years ago, and you know
Uh-huh.
so 10 years ago that research that was done, and which even today now 10 years later, what I am advocating for is for more inclusive research. So for global majority women, so Black women, Asian women, and other ethnicities to actually be more included in the research that's going on. Because 10 years ago, and even now, there is lack of representation in research, which means that we don't have accurate data to say really the reasons why Black women, global majority women, in particular South Asian women, are actually experiencing menopause in a more severe way and for the perimenopause symptoms for longer. So the most prevalent study that's been done is the SWAN study. That was done, or is still ongoing. It started in, I think, 1994, 1996.
Yeah.
They studied over 3,000 women. Of that number that were Black women was 935 women. This is actually the biggest study on women's health, menopause specifically, that's been done in Europe. There's studies that have been done, but in terms of representation, we are not really represented or included um, sufficiently to get the
Mm.
information that we need so that we can understand more the nuances and the differences in how Black women experience menopause. So I know from the SWAN study that the symptoms that they said that the Black women experienced more severely were the Vasomoto symptoms, so hot flushes, night sweat, and the psychological symptoms like depression, anxiety. And so that's what we have to go by because most of the research, information, data that's out there on menopause is oftentimes white woman centered. So we do need more
Mm.
Black woman centered education on menopause, which is why myself and others are working towards trying to make that happen so that we can best understand what is actually happening for Black women in menopause and what we can do to provide viable solutions so that they can thrive through this
Yeah.
inevitable transition.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, I'm so happy that things has progressed ever since I did my own research. So I'm so happy that things has progressed ever since then. But are women able to share their menopausal journey now? How is that being put together? Is there anywhere they can, freely share their menopause journey? Is there any room like that? Are they now taking it as a kind of pride? Are they happy to report that? Or is there still some challenges in that at the moment?
Yeah, so these challenges in regards to women sharing their stories on menopause are deep rooted. They're deep
Yeah,
rooted in
yeah,
history in terms of just cultural, so cultural and
mm,
intergenerational. So grandmothers never spoke to their granddaughters or mothers to their daughters about what
yes,
they were experiencing. So their menopause story, they didn't share
yeah,
those
yeah,
stories, and so I mean, also I can speak for myself in that my mother never spoke to me about menopause. I believe that the first time that I heard the word menopause, I was in my late teens. And I did not know what it was because no one had spoken to me about it. And so um, part of the advocacy work that I'm doing is to really push for women to share their stories, grandmothers to share with their granddaughters, daughters to share with their, sorry, mothers to share with their daughters, aunties to share with their nieces, colleague to colleague, friend to friend. Because the more we share our stories, is the more that we can break the stigma because there's so many different things that
yeah,
impact the way in which women um, the stigma around menopause. There's so many different things. So we've got the strong Black woman trope, which tells us that menopause or anything associated with it or the symptoms are considered as weakness. So we're not to actually say what we are experiencing. If we are experiencing any
mm,
type of psychological symptoms or we're not, we feel like we can't cope, we're not to share that because we are considered to be strong and should remain strong at all times, even though internally, there's a major shift going on, as I said. And so breaking the stigma is, first of all, education. So we need Black woman-centered education. And then secondly, to share our stories. So I'm an
Yeah.
ambassador of the National Black Women's Network, and we have a menopause talk group within that network. And in the network, we share menopause information, education, and we just have open dialogue about menopause just to give women a safe space where they can feel open enough, to be transparent about their menopause without judgment. It's a safe space. You can share anything about menopause. And this is what we're trying to do at the National Black Women's Network, to really highlight that it's okay to share your story. It's
Mm.
okay to say your experience, what you're going through, because when you do that, you liberate yourself and you also open up a way for you to get solutions and you don't have to suffer in silence.
Mm. Are you getting positive response with that? Are people actually sharing their stories? I would
Really,
love to hear. Yeah.
yeah, really amazing and positive response. Yes, because for too long, many women have just been suffering in silence. And now they have the opportunity to share their story. It's like liberation for them because perhaps they've not been able to speak openly with their own family members, or even their friends. So now it's just open up that dialogue and that conversation, which is extremely important for women because, you know, one woman can speak to another woman about her symptoms that she's experiencing, and perhaps she may not know that it's menopause symptoms. She may not know it's perimenopause. So when she speaks to another lady about it and they share, this is how she can be enlightened to realize, oh, okay, this could be perimenopause. So now she has a language for what she's experienced. Now, when she goes to
Mm.
her general practitioner, she's able to
Yeah.
articulate what she
Yeah.
is experiencing. So this is how we get solutions to, the response has been really positive. We every month we run a webinar, a free webinar for all women. Men are also welcome as well because ultimately there are allies in this, and they are also
Mhm.
affected by the women in their lives who are going through menopause. And so yeah, it's super positive. We've been having quite a few women who have been really open about their experience, and they've been sharing it with others, which is growing. So yeah, really amazing.
It's amazing that you say that men share in this experience as well, because when we hear menopause, we just think it's just a women issue, that the men are not involved in it. I would just, just
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah,
uh, men are not involved, but they are. They are the
absolutely.
ones that live with these women. They are the ones that also experiences the effect of the symptoms.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Are we getting some responses, some kind of interest from the men, from our main counterparts?
So, so as of date, we haven't had any men actually jumping on to any of the webinars, but like on my social media platforms, I've had men joining in the conversation. I even actually connected with someone on LinkedIn, a male who is a menopause coach. And so, yeah, which I just thought was extraordinary because it just shows that you don't actually have to be a woman to be interested in menopause.
Mm,
And there are some men out there who, you know, they have a heart for women, for women's health, they want to help. And so,
yeah.
this particular gentleman has obviously decided to get involved with providing solutions to women who are going through menopause. So, yeah, absolutely. I think that we definitely need to welcome men more into the conversation, invite them into the conversation and say, you know what, it is actually okay for you to join this conversation because, as I said, ultimately, men are affected by,
Then.
menopause as it pertains to the women in their lives and how it affects the women. And once the men have understanding as well as to what's actually going on, it brings understanding. It brings
Yeah.
understanding. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I definitely think it's important for men to be involved in the conversation.
It's very, very important that everyone is involved in the conversation, even
Yes.
even even our should we say adult children?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone should be really be in this conversation, because when it affects mom, it affects everyone in the house.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I would
how
go
do
so
we?
far to say I truly
Yeah,
believe that menopause should be taught in
yeah,
schools. When they're teaching children about the reproductive system, menopause needs to be included in that
yeah.
education. They should learn from young that there is something called menopause that will affect them later on in life so that they will be fully equipped and prepared for it when it turns up.
Yeah, I think, with that, I think when we're teaching them, or when they are being taught about puberty, they should include menopause there as well. So they are a lot more aware, than most of the people that have grown up without knowing what menopause is about. Okay, so is the gap closing now? The stigma gap, is it? The report about stigma and things like, is it closing? Are there still people reporting that this is a topic that shouldn't be discussed in certain forums,
The
even
gap
at home?
the gap is closing very slowly because
Mm,
this stigma, it, like as I said, is deep rooted in history.
yeah.
So our
Mm,
ancestors did not speak about menopause, and so this has trickled down to us. It's going to take for our generation to do the things that we're currently doing now to break the stigma
mm,
piece by piece, teaching
yeah.
our children, speaking to our children about menopause, being open about what we are
Mm,
experiencing ourselves as individuals, sharing our stories, as I said. I think the education, so the Black woman centered education, which is part of what I do as well. So I have created an entire curriculum. It's
okay.
educational, it's menopause education, but it's Black woman centered. So it
Okay.
specifically addresses how Black women experience menopause. Um, According to research that is out there, the limited research that we have, but it talks about the research. It also talks about the historical context and the reasons behind the stigma. So I have one of my modules here. So for those who
Hmm.
are on the radio won't be able to hear it, but it's called The Stigma of Menopause in Black Communities.
Okay.
And this is one of the modules that I deliver to organizations and to grassroots groups like charities and also churches to really just raise awareness and
Hmm.
education on menopause from a Black woman's perspective. Because a lot
Points
of the,
of
like
view.
I said earlier, a lot of the research, a lot of the data, a lot of the information out there right now is white woman centered. So we want Black women to be able to feel like that, they're being seen, they're being heard, and they're being supported. And not just, yes, it's Black woman centered education, it's created by a Black woman for Black women, but it's also to educate others as well. So, our allies, there's other people from different races who are interested in Black women and global majority women thriving through menopause who would also like this education so that they can know best. We've got general practitioners, we've got nurses, we've got doctors, we've got people who have a vested interest in helping Black women and global majority women to thrive through menopause, who would also like to learn this
Yeah.
education so that they can then apply it to, as best practice within whatever sphere they're in, so that they can best help those they are serving in their communities and in their organizations. So this is just a step towards really just helping to break the stigma on menopause in Black communities, and then finding viable solutions for women so that the women can actually thrive through the transition, because it is actually possible. I mean, I'm testament that it's
Yes.
possible to thrive through. Well, I'm currently in perimenopause, but it's possible to thrive through this transition. You don't have to suffer in silence. It is possible
Mhm.
for you to live, through this transition, not struggling.
Yeah. I must say, when I was doing my research, because I read so much about the symptoms, about the menopause itself, that I wanted to feel it myself, but I wasn't going through menopause during the time. So when I now got to the point, where I now had those experiences, I was like, oh, this is what I was actually kind of, so it
Yes.
was good to go through those experiences so I can say, oh, yes, I had actually kind of gone through this transition. I know what the symptoms, how it does feel like. Yeah.
Mm,
Is
yeah.
there some of the symptoms? Is there anything that you think that is actually coming out now? Some of the symptoms that is being reported that wasn't reported before? Just out of interest.
So, um, so one of
I
the
know I know we have our hot flushes, and people call it
yes,
cold
one
flushes,
of
and
one of the so for me, one of the really I thought was quite profound things that I found when I was doing my research is the major shift that's going on in the brain during menopause. So we have the sex hormones, progesterone, we have estrogen, we have testosterone. And when, so how I explain it to my trainees is that progesterone is like the big sister. When progesterone starts going down during perimenopause, it causes estrogen to just fluctuate wildly. And we have estrogen receptors throughout the body and also in the brain. So when estrogen starts to fluctuate and certain areas of the brain are not activated properly, this is
mm,
where we get issues. So just to describe in a nutshell, so there's an area of the brain called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, it regulates temperature, the body temperature. And when estrogen doesn't activate that area properly, this is where we get hot flushes, night sweats. So it is profound when you actually understand what is actually going on inside the brain when
mm,
these sex hormones begin to start fluctuating. And then we've got the amygdala and the hippocampus, which is they are both together, like near each other inside the center of the brain. The amygdala is the emotional center of the brain, and the hippocampus is the memory center of the brain. So when you start experiencing things like low mood, flat mood, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, that's all from the amygdala, so the emotional center of the brain. And then the memory issues from the hippocampus is the forgetfulness, the memory lapse. Then you've got
yeah,
brain fog and things like that as well. So once you actually begin to start understanding what is actually going on in the brain, it makes sense then all these myriad of different symptoms that are happening. And I think one of the symptoms that most women do not associate menopause with are the psychological symptoms, because usually when you hear about menopause, it's usually hot flushes that most people, that's the common symptom that most people associate menopause with. Insomnia is another one. And when estrogen doesn't activate the brain stem, that's where we
mm-hmm,
have insomnia, because the brain stem is regulates our waking up and our sleeping. So when estrogen doesn't activate that area properly, we have insomnia. So these are things that I really want women to be aware of so that we have more of an understanding as to what
yeah,
is happening. It's a major shift that's happening, which is why there's a myriad of symptoms that come with perimenopause, which is the second phase of menopause. Because often say menopause, perimenopause,
mm,
postmenopause. So we also explain in the training as well what the difference of the differences, or the four phases. There's four phases of menopause. So those
yeah,
phases as well is very important, I believe, for women to understand what that is, so that we have the knowledge and we have the information, so that when we actually go to our general practitioners as well, we're best informed to know what language we're going to use, what we are going to say, because oftentimes women are dismissed and
yeah.
sometimes misdiagnosed as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important for us to have this education.
Yeah, it's very, very important, and I'm glad that you're including the peri because people don't understand that you have symptoms before you even go into the actual menopause,
Yeah,
and there are also some other symptoms as well after going through the menopause as well, what we call the post-menopause phase. So I will be happy to invite you to some of our programs, some of our health, programs, events going forwards, Emma. And
thank you.
tell us how people can contact you. I know you've written, the book, the model that you've just shown us now. Tell us what is going
Yeah.
on in your life now, how people can connect with you, and how people can be part of what you're doing.
Yeah, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Emma Lady. My website is therelentlessboss.com. I'm on Instagram at therelentlessboss.com and also Facebook at therelentlessboss.com. I have a free perimenopause guide. This is it. For those who cannot see, it's actually called the Black Woman's Guide to Perimenopause, and I offer that for free. So you can go onto my website and get a free copy. All you need to do is subscribe, and you get a free copy of this guide to help you to really just start your, if you haven't already started your journey on your menopause wellness journey, the guide is something that can help you to start that journey with confidence and with the information. It's something that I created because when I was going through it, I didn't have any information
Yeah.
available to me that I felt like, oh, this could actually help me to really just transition through this thing or help me to find solutions. I had to figure it out myself. So the guide is basically just there for women to help women to really guide them to get some solutions for the symptoms. And also, as I said, I'm not a general practitioner, so it's really just helping women so that when they go to the general practitioner, they know what to say, they know what language to use. As I said, oftentimes, this is no blame on the medical profession because oftentimes they're not trained specifically in menopause, and they're certainly not trained on how menopause affects Black women. So if we educate
Mm,
and inform ourselves, we can then go in and speak to them and share what we have learned. And you never
mm,
know, through that conversation, you might get the solution that you need. But if you do go to the doctors and you don't get the help that you need, get a second opinion. Don't give up. Keep going, until you
mm,
get, or go to a menopause specialist. There are specific, menopause specialists out there who actually help, with real viable solutions for the symptoms. So, yeah.
mm.
So yeah, that's how
Oh,
everyone can
thank
get in touch.
you. Yeah. I mean, I am so happy that we've actually, when we're saying, are we winning? When it comes to menopause, I think we are winning. We've come a long way.
Yes,
People are more aware of what menopause is about and how to recognize the symptoms and how to also manage it. There might still be some stigma still attached to it, but I think women are more able to articulate, their symptoms now, more able to make choices regarding what sort of management and treatment they want to go with. So I am very pleased that we are winning. We've come a long way, and it can only get better, in the future.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Emma Lady,
Yeah.
for coming
Thank you for having
to
me. Thank you
to
so
speak
much.
to us, yeah, about menopause. And I'm hoping that you will come back again to tell us how you're getting on with your research, with your survey, and also with the book and everything else around, menopause.
Yes,
We'd
absolutely.
love to have
Absolutely. It's
you.
been such a privilege and honor to be here and to share, on menopause. I'm really passionate about it because of my,
No.
my deeply personal testimony. But also, I just love us and I want us to thrive through this transition. And because I know that it's possible, yeah,
Yes.
I would absolutely love to come back again and share more on the work that we're doing and see how we can, work together to continue to break the stigma.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I wish you well in
Thank
all
you.
that you do. And I
Thank
want to tell
you.
our viewers, if you want to follow Emma Lady, if you want more information, you can also come to our YouTube channel, Moriah Television, or follow us here on Facebook pages and Instagrams and, all the social media, outlets that we have. And also contact Emma Lady directly on LinkedIn. So Emma, thank you so much again for coming, and I
Thank
will
you.
see you
Thank you for
next
having me.
time. Thank you, viewers. See you next
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.